Welcome to the Alpha Warrior Show. We're excited to share diverse perspectives and expert insights with you. Please note that the views and information expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Alpha Warrior Show, its management, or our partners. Each of our affiliates and sponsors and partnerships is a separate entity, and their opinions are their own. Today's content is provided for information and educational purposes and should not be taken as specific advice, whether it be financial, medical, or legal. While we strive to present accurate and useful information, we cannot guarantee its completeness or relevance to your specific situation. We provide all information as is and encourage you to consult with a professional advisor to address your specific individual needs. Your use of any information from this broadcast is entirely at your own risk. By listening further, you agree to identify and protect the Alpha Warrior Show and its associates from any claims or damages arising from your use of this broadcast content. Changes to this disclaimer may be made at any time and will be done effectively immediately upon posting or broadcasting. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you find the episode both informative and thought-provoking. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the next generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
How's it going, everybody? It is hot out here in California, and the only thing hotter than California right now is the guests I'm going to be bringing on here in a moment. You guys stand by. The topic we're going to cover, I'm talking about Mike King, and I'm talking about the Book of Bad War. And this topic was so hot that Amazon said, "Oh, hell no, get it out of here, suppress this thing. We can't have this kind of information getting out there for the people to see." And we're going to talk about it. And this one's going to be a long one, you guys. So we're actually going to break this up into a 2-part series. So next week, we'll have part 2 to this show. But for now, I got to keep the lights on. And I got to make sure there's food in the fridge to feed these hungry little mouths. So let's get to 2 amazing sponsors. And when we come back, we will be commercial free until the end of this broadcast. Hope you guys enjoy the show.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine, Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
When I started MyPillow, it was just a problem solution, one product company. Well, since then, with the help of my dedicated employees, we now have hundreds of products, some you might not even know about. To get the word out, we're having a $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. And for the first time ever, our 6-pack towel sets, you guessed it, just $25. Our brand new 4-pack dish towels, $25. And I've never done this before. Premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size for only $25. And there's so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code for our $25 extravaganza. Order $75 and over. Your entire order ships absolutely free.
Absolutely free. My Pillow, my store, promo code alpha works at both of those. You guys saw it. All the links to especially that miracle mushroom, holistic stuff for our bodies and ailments. All that stuff's down in the description. You know what else is down there? realnewsandhistory.com, because when you hear what my guest Mike King is going to talk about, you're going to be like, I want more of this. And I'm telling you right now, this gentleman has 30 books PDF format that you can go and get for $29 on his website. That's robbery. We're robbing Mike King, you guys, and I'm talking about it live on the show right now. So do me a solid, go down there, support this man. And with that, let me bring on the gentleman you guys really want to hear from tonight. How you doing, Mike?
Alpha, good to be with you. I think it's hotter here in New Jersey than in California.
You got green behind you, man. I ain't believing that for 1 second. It looks beautiful over there, man. I'm jealous.
Yeah, can you believe that's New Jersey? It's the northwestern corner of New Jersey. So it's not all like, New York City and Asphalt City. Nice spots in New Jersey.
Yeah, even the worst states still has some of the most beautiful areas.
Sure,
Mike,
course,
for those that are, the audience has grown a lot since the last time you were here. And so for those that don't know, Mike's a returning guest down there. I'll link the first show that we did together so you guys can go catch that as well. But you've probably seen Mike on Untold History, on Nino's Corner. I mean, the man has amazing information, and we're about to cover a book that Amazon said, hell no. Why don't you kind of tell us what happened there?
Sure. Well, everybody wants to talk to me lately, primarily because of this subject. I think now, perhaps for the first time in history, you're allowed to talk about it a little bit. I don't know if you've noticed. It's not just me. Candace Owens is dropping World War II red pills to her 7 million Twitter followers.
I guess timing's everything, man.
Yeah, it sure is. But I had this book here, The Bad War. And for those who don't know, the nickname of World War II, these psychos call it the Good War. It's one of its nicknames. So that's why I call it the Bad War. The good is crossed out and I replace it with bad. But this was really my first full-length book. And I published it. I had it published on Amazon 2015. And it just started growing organically because back in those days, you put a book on Amazon, if you could generate the first wave of sales on your own, and I had my own readership by that time, and their algorithms, their computers would pick up on that, and then they would start marketing your book automatically. So at one point, this book would show up on the first page of the Amazon search engine if you put World War II in there. So it was blowing up, and it was it wasn't just preaching to the choir. It was like normies were stumbling across it. So that was my heyday. But what happened? It didn't last long. After a couple years, they began pressuring Amazon, the ADL, the usual suspects, saying, you've got books on there that deny the Holocaust, and they say World War II was bad, et cetera, et cetera. And they were pressuring Amazon. Surprisingly, Bezos resisted that for almost 2 years. And they were pissed off about it because it was growing. And it wasn't just my book. It was 25 other books in all that they were targeting. Fine, but then it was in 2017, if you recall, there was a wave of bomb threats were called into Jewish centers all over the country. Okay. And then there was a vandalism attack at a Jewish cemetery, and then another one at a synagogue in Seattle, which is where Amazon is headquartered. So finally, they couldn't resist anymore. They're under so much pressure. You've got to take these books out, anti-Semitism all over the place. So they caved in and they removed 25 books, and The Bad War was one of them. That was the first time Amazon ever engaged in censorship. Oh, by the way, they caught the guy who was doing all the bomb threats. Crazy person in Israel.
Oh,
Surprise,
no.
surprise.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shocker.
So it was an operation. So I was in their crosshairs, and quite an honor. I'm glad they didn't whack me, though, but they whacked my book. And fortunately, I still market it on the website, realnewsandhistory.com. You'll see on the menu, World War II Truth. It's also in the book section. It's PDF. It's also in physical. Everything that you can get, either physical book or the PDF package, which you said is a steal. But that's the story of the Bad War and how it blew up on Amazon and then how it was removed from Amazon. So I think that alone tells you there's something to this. Okay? Because if it's just crazy conspiracy nonsense, you're not going to apply that kind of pressure to have censorship, right?
I agree completely on that.
Yeah.
So set us up, man. I know this is going to be a 2-part series. What are we going to cover in this first part?
Well, if World War II, if we're going to talk about World War II, and it's important even today, because I always say it's the foundational mythology that defines the modern world. Everything we take as normal today, which really isn't normal, it's oppressive, it's evil, grew out of that war, whether it's the United Nations, NATO, the CIA, the WHO with the COVID stuff, the State of Israel, the European Common Market, and the European Union, all of the institutions of globalism, what they call the liberal New World Order, that we suffer under today. They come out of that war. They all got jump started. They had it all ready to go on the back burner. So that's why, if you understand what a fraud and what a lie World War II is, it's going to correct your thinking when it comes to assessing the modern world and what's going on today. So, as a starting point, I don't start on September 1st, 1939, like all these fake historians do, which is the day Germany invaded Poland. I say, oh, that was the beginning. There's a backstory to everything. Every major event in the current day, or whether it's history, there's a train of smaller events occurring at regular intervals, 5, 10, 15, 20, sometimes 30 years before. And if you don't understand the stepping stones, which are engineered, then by the time you get to the big event, you're like, well, what just happened? You have no clue as what's going on. So in my book, I actually start the story. I don't think any other World War II historian does this. I start in the 1800s because that's when they were setting up the chess pieces for a future great war. They wanted to blow up all of Europe and then out of it, change the forms of government and establish a League of Nations, which is the framework of one world order. So it was the cabal, the same cabal we're up against today, was operating in the 1800s. But let's start this story with World War I.
Well, let me tell you
a lot of World War I in my book.
Let me interrupt real quick, Mike. I'll tell you what, man. You make it hard for me to host this show because I just want to chill and listen. And I'm just like, why do I gotta do all this sound and lighting stuff going on, man?
Yeah.
I mean, damn. Your ability to articulate and make it so intriguing is bar none, man. Like, you have a talent. You really do have a talent, and I hope people appreciate that and not only just buy your material, but I hope they share it. But the stage is yours, brother. I will try to remember that I got technical shit that I got to do at the same time.
Now, feel free to interject anytime you got a question or you want me to elaborate further on something else. But you know what, Alpha? History, and it's a shame because the way they teach history in school, it's like, on this date, this guy did this. On this date, this happened. And But it's a shame because when you start to look at the players who are moving the pieces and the intrigue and the drama, there ain't no movie, no soap opera like it. Only it's real and it affects our life. So it's very, for lack of a better term, fun to learn when it's taught properly. Only it's not fun because most of it is evil. It's usually the bad guys winning all the time. But it really is a story. It's not told properly. I mean, number one, it's fake. And number two, the way they tell it, they just give you the name of a date, the name of a battle, and you don't really understand what's going on. But when you know the drama, it blows the mind. And then you tie it to the present day. So, but I always like to say World War I and World War II are better described as World War Part 1 and World War Part 2. So it's basically the same players going at it, and it's the same cabal engineering both for the same motives. So they truly are two parts of the same 20th century effort to just blow shit up so you could rearrange it. And that's what the two world wars accomplished. But going back to World War I, they set up, and this back in 1800s, two alliances. They had Britain and France, and then they sucked in Russia on the east. That was one alliance, and that was an offensive alliance. And then in the center of Europe, you had Germany, Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Turkey formed an alliance. So there was a lot of intrigue to set this up because now you had a situation where once one thing is triggered, one country against another, it's automatic 7 countries because actually Italy was in there too in the mix. So they set that up. So now you come to 1914, you got 7 countries, 4 on one alliance, 3 on the other. Italy, then they switch sides and they jump to the Allies. They used to be with Germany, Turkey, and Austria-Hungary. But all you needed was a spark, and boom, you have 7 powerful, large countries at war. And that's what happened. So it was a total setup, World War I. Why? 2 things they wanted, major objectives. Get rid of all the old governments, which were constitutional monarchies, and replace them either with Bolshevik communists, as they eventually did in Russia, or parliamentary democracies where you control the parties. You get your stooges in there and a cabal controls the parties. So you restructure, and you don't have to deal with the existing governments, which were, aristocratic and a little harder to control. And then you put together a League of Nations at the end. You say, boy, this is terrible. What happened? You see what happened with all this crazy nationalism got out of hand? It must never happen again. We're going to build a League of Nations and everybody's going to join and we're going to discuss our differences like gentlemen. It's a scam. What the League of Nations was intended to be was a skeletal structure, a blueprint of the world government. So that's what World War I was all about. The very last country to mobilize, and the one country that was trying to avoid it right up until the 11th hour, was Germany. Germany, 100% innocent in terms of starting World War I. Even some establishment historians will concede that it was Britain and France that were really aggressive. So it's important to understand that, because what I'm building up to is I want to show the dirty, raw deal that they gave the Germans after World War I. And once we understand that, we understand the appeal of Hitler, because people were justifiably resentful and hurt. So the war's going on. Germany is kind of like in control of the situation. It breaks down into a stalemate, but they're in good shape. There isn't any German territory that's under occupation. The only way that the Allies, and that would be Britain and France, were actually going to win the war was if they could bring the United States in. Okay. And coincidentally, just 1 year early, just before World War I even started, the United States set up the Federal Reserve and the income tax. Okay. And that's not by coincidence, because if you're going to get involved in a major war like that, you need money. They ain't going to raise it from tariffs. So you had the Fed and the income tax. So now the U.S. is ready to raise the money it needs to get to the war. So the war's going on in Europe. Woodrow Wilson's like, we're neutral. We're not going to get involved. Whole thing was a scam. At a critical juncture in a war, the Zionist leaders in Britain, Israel doesn't exist at this time. Okay? It's Turkish Empire, Palestine is under Turkish jurisdiction, populated by Arabs. You got maybe 10,000 Jews living in Palestine. It's basically all Arab. But the Zionists want it. They go to the British because the British and the French were considering making peace with Germany because Germany had a peace offer on the table the whole time. And so many people died. Such a horrible war. Oh, the poison gas and everything. So they said, listen, you don't have to make peace yet. You can still win this war. We control Woodrow Wilson over in the United States. He's our boy. And they did control him because he had an affair back when he was a professor in Princeton with a colleague's wife. He had another chick too. You know, he liked the ladies. Back then, something like that became known. You know, it wouldn't be like Bill Clinton type of thing. It would be you're finished. It was a different moral climate back then, right? They owned him. They owned Wilson. They went to the British. Here's the deal. We'll get the United States in on your side. Okay, United States is young and powerful. A lot of fresh meat that they could throw into the meat grinder. You got to take Palestine away from the Turks and allows the Jews of Europe to start immigrating to Palestine. So the British, they took that deal and they issued something called the Balfour Declaration. You can look it up. In Israel, they've got Lord Balfour's under postage stamps. They honor him because he was the one who made this declaration. And he wrote the original letter to Lord or Sir Walter Rothschild. Okay. So all the
let me ask you a question about this part, Mike.
Yeah.
You know, out of all the lands, why that one? Was it because of the scriptural context that's there, or the symbolism of what's like? Why the push for that part of land, or was it something that was more like geopolitical, like trade routes and all that stuff?
Well, I believe because they had an opportunity to get a nice chunk of land in Kenya. The British were going to give them a chunk of Kenya. Later on, Hitler wanted to put them in Madagascar, beautiful, sunny African island. Like, no, got to be Palestine. So I don't think it was too much religious. I think it's more, if you look on a map, this is where Europe, Africa, and Asia converge. It's right there at the center. And it's just strategic. You know, you got the Mediterranean Sea right there, you know, and then to the south, you got the Red Sea. So it just seems like an ideal place to be the center of the world and a world capital.
Gotcha.
But yeah, they would not settle for anything else. Okay. You could have given them paradise. They would have said, no, we want Palestine. So, so maybe it's a bit of both. I don't know. Historical, religious, but certainly major geopolitical aspect if you just look at its location on a map. So they made that deal. And all of a sudden, Woodrow Wilson, who campaigned for re-election in 1916 on a slogan, he kept us out of war, peace, peace, peace. All of a sudden, we got to go to war. Germans bad. And just like that, everything changed. The United States entered the war. And the tide of the war began to change. And all the British, they headed south to fight the Turks to fill out their end of the deal and left the Americans to take on the Germans. And it was pretty rough, even though the Americans were only involved in fighting for like 1 year. The United States lost 150,000 young men, okay, dead. And no telling how many tens of thousands, scores of thousands died in subsequent years because they got a whiff of that gas, killed them slowly. It was horrible. So that's how the United States got involved into the war. But those were dual objectives: the framework of the world government and to be able to grab Palestine away from the Turks. That's World War I. Okay. It wasn't about make the world safe for democracy, all that other bullshit. So now that the tide is turning, but they never set foot on German soil. Okay. Germany was still, you know, in good shape. They weren't going to be able to conquer the landmass of Germany. But Woodrow Wilson now, you know, he's American. He's a little more trusted. And he makes a deal, an offer. It's called the 14 points, basically saying to Germany, tell you what, just lay down your arms, go home, let's call off the war, and we'll have a nice, the slogan was, peace without victory. Okay, no winners, no losers. We're just going to sit around and we'll make a nice deal. Incredibly, partly because of internal treason, and partly because some people were so deluded in Germany and they were sick of the war, they accepted the deal. They laid down their arms, they retreated back to Germany, and basically it's like an unconditional surrender at that point. So what happened? They got raped at the Treaty of Versailles. All of a sudden, peace without victory turned into this horrible treaty in 1919 where they extracted, they put the whole blame on Germany. They wanted reparations in the trillions of marks. They took about 25-30% of German territory and they reassigned it. They created the new nation of Poland. They reassigned some to Czechoslovakia. There are 5 million Germans living in the territory that they gave away to Poland. They've been there for centuries. They told them, pack your shit and get out. It's clothes on their back. At total ethnic cleansing. Germany was just brutally raped after being told, just lay down your weapons and we'll peace without victory. We'll all kiss and make up. It'll be beautiful. So, and they had to sign. Why? Because Britain had a hunger blockade on them that it could have killed as many as several 100,000 people, according to ex-British Prime Minister David Lloyd George. They were starving the Germans into submission. Germany is disarmed. They've got a hunger blockade, a naval blockade. They say, sign here. So they did. They had to agree to this horrible treaty. So that is what was done to Germany. Understandably, this began to create tremendous resentment within the country. And I want to give you an idea just how bad the reparations were. Germany couldn't pay no more. They start printing money, okay? Hyperinflation. So this is just a few years after the war, early 1920s. These are postage stamps. And you can see they have a mark over the original denomination because they're constantly increasing. And you see the denominations go from 500,000 marks to 1 million marks, 10 million marks, 100 million marks, 500 million marks. And then they go up to 5 billion marks. Hyperinflation so bad, prices were doubling each day. German middle class wiped out. The currency was such shit that they had to pay the employees daily because by the next day, the prices would double. So, a wife would come to the factory. The guy's giving his wife money. Hurry up, honey, go shopping because the prices will be double tomorrow. Horrific. It's just mass poverty, and you had all this territory stripped away, and all these people were made refugees. Germany now started asking questions. How the hell did this happen? Who did this to us? The reality was, internally, they were betrayed by Bolshevik communists who wanted to bring Germany to its knees. Why? So they could take it over, which is exactly what happened in Russia.
God, it sounds like you're describing what's happening here in the United States, man.
Exactly. And it's not because history repeats in this case, the old adage. It's history continuing. It's the same story. It's the same players. They just go from generation and then they pass it down. It's the same cabal. Same thing. Okay? So that's how they play. They do economic destabilization and destruction. Okay? And then the very same Marxists who do that, they offer a solution. Hey, the solution is communism. That's how Russia fell. Because when World War I was going bad, it was going bad for everybody. They fomented discontent within Russia and overthrew the Russian government. This is right. Russia had to drop out of World War I because of this, and the Bolsheviks took over. And then you had the Civil War, the Red Terror, mass genocide like you won't believe. And Germany, actually, for a few days, Berlin fell to the communists at the end of the war. And then the military units rose up and they put that down. So that's what was happening. The internal Bolsheviks and also the Zionists, because they knew about this dirty deal. Britain was dropping flyers over Germany that were written in Yiddish. So like everybody know, hey, you know what? Germany loses, they're going to have Israel over there. So now some of the religious Jews who believed in getting Palestine back, they were on board. So make a long story short, Germany was betrayed by within by these Bolshevik leaders. They led the unions. and they were organizing strikes during wartime. They controlled the newspapers, so they started demoralizing the war effort. And most of these Bolsheviks were of Jewish ethnicity, as were the Zionists. So now the Germans are thinking, you know what? We treated them so well for 50 years, ever since the founding of the German unified nation. And this is how they repay us. So you began to have the phenomenon of what they call anti-Semitism began to spread. This is not an indictment against every Jewish person, but the communist leadership in Germany was predominantly Jewish. And so was the Zionist leadership. So this, now you had this good relationship for all these years between Germans and Jews, but now all of a sudden, after World War I and the Germans are suffering, there starts to be conflict. And I want to show you a cartoon from that period. This is a German cartoon. And you see German soldiers in the trenches, and behind them, they're being stabbed in the back by parliamentarians. And behind that, you see Marxist revolutionaries. And some of these are Jewish parliamentarians by the way they make the features and so on. It's called the stab in the back. It was very real. Fake historians dismiss it as the legend of the stab in the back. It's anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. No, Germany was betrayed and destroyed from within. And that's the story of World War I and the suffering. Can you imagine that inflation I just described? Your whole life savings is wiped out in days. Entire German middle class, wealthy country, industrialized country, advanced country, reduced to paupers on soup lines, begging for some carrots. And the only people who were able to withstand that kind of collapse are the wealthy. If you own property, gold, silver, equities, that kind of stuff, then that just inflates along with the money. For your average person who just, puts his life savings in a bank or in a shoebox, whatever, wiped out, it's worthless. So that is very important context that I wanted to establish, because that will lead to the rise of Hitler and why Hitler became so popular, and then why the globalists have to put Germany down again. So very important to have this little bit of prehistory.
No, absolutely. I mean, I learned something there I didn't know. I didn't realize that part of the German government or establishment was Jewish people. I mean, it kind of makes you say, wait, what? Like, because you've been told, in the fake history that it makes you, well, hold on, wait, then how did all this happen?
Yeah.
And man, very interesting.
Well, they had enormous influence in the politics. The newspaper was pretty much all them, So, when it was perceived that they were following their agenda and their interests, not Germans, that caused a problem. So now what happens? There's a young corporal who's a volunteer. He volunteered to fight. He's from Austria, but he volunteered for Germany. Austrians are Germans. He was wounded in combat. His leg was badly injured. He was sent home, healed up, could have stayed home, went right back to combat. And then he got poison gassed. He was blinded for like a week. Received 2 German Iron Crosses for conspicuous bravery on the battlefield. So he was a real badass. And he served his country, and he saw the betrayal. He came home, and like so many other German veterans, and maybe you could identify this, you fought in Iraq, and you go through that scam, and then you realize, man, they put me through this for what? Okay? You want answers, and you're pissed off. And perhaps that's why you do what you do, right?
Absolutely.
Well, that was Adolf Hitler. And he joined a political party, a small political party, and became politically active and started building up a movement. But prior to the war, he was just a young man, humble background. His father died when he was 10. His mother died when he was 18. He was homeless for a while in Vienna. But he was self-educated. They say he could read a book and just like retain it forever. He had a mind like a computer. He supported himself with his paintings. Now, this is interesting. I had learned that he was a failed painter, Someone said he was a house painter. You look at his artworks, and these are the artworks of a young man who was probably like a high school graduate artwork, or 19, 20 years old. And I just want to show you one of his paintings here. That's St. Charles Cathedral in Vienna.
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful. He's got hundreds like these, and that's how he supported himself. He was a painter. And it's just amazing that he was rejected for art school. It seems that at the time that they were already starting to move away from that stuff and promoting that abstract art Picasso garbage. So this type of realistic artist wasn't welcome anymore in the high institutions of art. But I mean, he had talent. He had architectural skills. So he's highly unusually intelligent and courageous. And now, in this condition, everything is political in Germany now, because the nation is on its ass, and you got millions of pissed off veterans. So many died, so many lost limbs, so much sacrifice and misery. So, understandably, this was their Super Bowl back then, the politics. And you had this group. Well, we got to go communist. No, we got to go back to a monarchy. No, it was chaos. But his movement had a clear, cogent vision and begins giving speeches in beer halls, and it would just stop people in their tracks, because he's laying it out. If you read all this stuff, it's just clear and concise, and he's basically describing the one world order cabal and what they did to us, and he's defining it, and it's resonating with people. And so he gives a speech, and then people start putting money in the hat, and it just grows and grows organically. And then at some point, some bigger people get involved, like Ludendorff, who was a leading German marshal. Okay, so organically throughout the 1920s, his movement grows, and by 1932, his party actually wins a plurality of seats, which means he becomes the chancellor. So he gains power. In early 1933, he's the chancellor. And I would compare him to where Trump was in 2017. Hitler in 1933, early 1933, would be like where Trump was in 2017. And what I mean by that, yeah, he's the chancellor. He's got a lot of his boys in the parliament, the Bundestag. But the communists have a shitload of seats in parliament, actual communist party. The Democrat Socialists, which is like a liberal left-wing party, and some of them were secret communists, they have a bunch of seats. So it's sort of like Trump trying to govern with the Democrats and the Rhino Republicans. Okay? He's on his way, but he just doesn't have the power to really affect change. So early 1933, the communists make their move. They're very strong. They had 5 million, 6 million supporters in Germany. They make their move to stage a violent coup to overthrow Hitler while he was weak. Okay? It backfires on him. Sort of like all this stuff is backfiring on the people who are coming after Trump, right? The parallels are very interesting.
You know what?
When Trump comes back, he's going to be able to kick ass.
It really is, Mike. And, you know, we talk about cognitive dissonance all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm even battling it because, you know, from the moment I can remember my first education, you're told Hitler is pretty much the devil. Yeah. You know, to try to picture, you know, him as an artist, him as saying, hey, man, like there's this freaking secret cabal that's putting us through all this stuff. It's like, but wait, that's like what we're saying and like what we're doing. But this cognitive dissonance is like, but no, we're talking Hitler here. But what helps me able to absorb it and to at least at a minimum entertain the theory of this is to realize, well, if the deep state wins what's going on here in America, what do the history books 50 years from now, 100 years from now, what does Trump look like in those books? Guess what? They're going to describe his ass like Hitler. They're already doing it right now, real time to us. And we know it's bullshit. So if we see that kind of propaganda being done to us in real time right now, like you were saying, these parallels, then how can you not consider that someone back then might have been doing it as well? But they use this. I mean, listen, I'm going to give the deep state this, man. They finesse propaganda to perfection. Yeah. to perfection. Because this conversation, I know there's good people that are going to hear it, be like, no, man, no. Like, I know the Holocaust, I know this, no. And I would just say, well, they're saying that about Trump. That ain't true. I mean, shit, the government says I'm a terrorist, bro, and I love this country.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So if we see that happening now, we have to be willing to be open to the idea that this ain't the first time they've done that to somebody. And I'll give it back to you.
Exactly. And that's what I say to people. I don't want to be anybody's guru. Don't just take what I say and say, oh, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I believe him. No. Hear me. And then do your own thinking and your own research. Because, you know, the motto at my website, realnewsandhistory.com, fake history is the fake news that has passed into the rearview mirror. Think about it. What is history? It's yesterday's news. So if the news is fake today, what makes you think it wasn't fake in the 1930s and 40s? Why would you believe that? Do you know who owned the New York Times, the most important media outlet in America, still to this day, in the 1930s? The Sulzberger family. Who owns the New York Times today? The Sulzberger family. It's from 1896. It went from Adolph Oakes, whose daughter married a Sulzberger, to Sulzberger, to the son, to the son, to the son. It's like some royal dynasty, 130 years. Most important newspaper in America. Washington Post had a 50-year run. Eugene Meyer, and went to his daughter, Catherine Meyer Graham. So of course the news was fake then. It's totally illogical to think that we've been lied to, whatever, 9/11, COVID, JFK, and then Woodrow Wilson and the Federal Reserve Bank and the Great Depression. So everybody knows everything from 1900 forward is a lie. But somehow we're supposed to believe from 1939 to 1945, they gave us the straight scoop. Come on. So think. Fake history is the fake news that has passed to the rearview mirror. And you see Trump, I mean, there was one issue in the New York Daily News. He was portrayed as Satan. Literally, he was red with horns. This is back in 2017. So, yeah, I mean, if we were to come up short, 10, 15, 20 years from now, school children will learn about the devil, Donald Trump, and the evil people like Alpha and Mike King who supported him, etc. So, yeah, so believe it. So they made this move. The communists made this move, backfired on them. So Hitler now made an appeal to the president of Germany. He was a Marshal Hindenburg. They named the airship after. And respected military leader. He had kind of a symbolic position as president, sort of like a king in that he could make like major decisions. So Hitler basically asked, this country's in chaos. I need emergency powers for 4 years. And to give you an idea what Germany was going through. And now you had that hyperinflation. The middle class got wiped out. That was in the early 20s. So then there was a period of monetary stabilization. You had somewhat of a viable economy. They're still paying the reparations, but they put them on a lower payment plan. But then the Great Depression, the stock market hits. It hits Germany particularly hard. And unlike Americans, we had it bad. America had 30% unemployment. 1929, 30, 31, 30% unemployment. But at least many people had a lifetime of savings. So a lot of people, they were able to draw on their savings. They never went through hyperinflation. German people didn't really have savings because they were wiped out in 22, 23, 24. So, you had 5-6 years to begin rebuilding, but now you have 30% unemployment, 100,000 suicides a year, prostitution like you wouldn't believe. Berlin was the LGBT. Well, that's another thing. You know the story of the Nazi book burnings. You ever see those pictures? The big bad brown shirts. Oh, they're burning books. It's terrible. I grew up on that. And you get the impression, wow, they don't want people to be educated. They want people stupid so they can dominate them. Burning books. Oh. It wasn't until, late adulthood that I came to learn what it was they were burning. Pedophilia books, LGBT books, communist books. That event where you see the famous picture, everyone, all the brown shirts and standing around as a big fire, took place at the Magnus Hirschfeld Institute of Sex Studies or something. They were pioneers. They were doing sex changes back then. Berlin would compare to any degenerate European or American city today. That was the hub, because the country had just become demoralized. It went to shit. Nobody gave a shit anymore. They were just, they lost everything. They felt betrayed. They felt that the elites didn't give a shit about them. So then, the moral collapse follows that as well. So it is impossible to exaggerate the depths to which Germany had fallen, financially, culturally, politically, and even in the big cities, morally. So this is what Hitler was faced with. So he says to Hindenburg, I need emergency powers. Okay? I can't deal. You still got a third of the freaking parliament, their Communist Party. I got to deal with that. And then you got the Social Democrats, who are almost just as bad. So it was called the Enabling Act. So Hindenburg said, okay, you got 4 years. Do what you got to do. Right? Again, analogous to Trump. Because now when Trump comes back, it ain't going to be like the old days with Paul Ryan and McCain and McConnell sticking the knives in the back. They're gone. Democratic Party, Trump's going to roll. And sometimes that's what you need, a righteous boss man. Okay? So that's how it went. So now, 33, Hitler's running a deal. Hitler and his party. It's called the National Socialist German Workers' Party. And I should clarify, this should not be confused at all with the socialism of Karl Marx. People say, oh, Hitler was a socialist. It was a different definition of socialist. It was an ideal. It meant, perhaps a better word would be solidarity. What they preached was no classes. The old Germany with the aristocrats at the top, okay, and then stratified society, and they had all the best positions. It's going to be egalitarian, meritocracy, okay? If your kid's smart, he wants to be an engineer, well, we're going to get him the schooling he needs. If you're capable and you want to rise to the heads of the military, you can do that. Because that was very important for Hitler, because he came from poverty and such a humble background, and then he rose to where he was. So that's the kind of society he wanted to build. And there were some people who didn't like that in the upper classes. They were like, okay, anti-communism, we're down with that. But meritocracy? No, we're the elites. We're the aristocrats. What are you talking about, Hitler? So, but that's what he started to build. And in a 4-year period, from when he had this authoritarian power, from 33 to 37, this is all fact. Nobody can deny this. They just ignore it. Germany went from 30% unemployment to 0.
Wow.
Okay? That's a fact. And it wasn't like make work jobs like FDR, which just gives people, a shovel, go dig a ditch in the woods. So we'll pay. That doesn't make any productivity. No, Germany was booming. They started booming. They built the Autobahn. Hitler built the Autobahn. They started mass producing the Volkswagen. Hitler actually consulted with Ferdinand Porsche on the design of the Volkswagen, the aerodynamics. He knew engineering. People who knew him would be freaked out. He didn't have like any so-called higher education, but he would read books on engineering and philosophy and everything. He just had him on a computer. But the country started booming, but it was mainly a private enterprise. Okay, and so you had full employment. More importantly, the German mark became the strongest currency in the world. Now, this is the Great Depression. So the United States, Britain, the whole time, they're still in the 20% with unemployment. And Germany's got full employment. Okay? What's going on there? How are they doing this? They don't have the resources of America and the industry of America. And yet they're putting America to shame, Britain to shame, France to shame. What's Hitler's secret? At the core of the economic miracle was the currency. He basically got rid of the Federal Reserve of Germany. The German currency was introduced into the economy interest-free. Unlike this scam that we have where every dollar that's in circulation, when you think about it, is injected at conception through some sort of a loan. Whether you're getting a loan from a bank or whether it's the Fed is buying bonds, every dollar is injected at interest, which means there's always more debt than there is money in circulation. We take it for granted, but it's really a scam system. And you can't even live without a mortgage. You can't live without a car payment. Central bank does that. Trump's going to deal with that when he comes back too.
It's all designed around debt.
Yeah. So it's designed around that. You're a perpetual slave.
Mm-hmm.
And we almost had a civil war in this country back when Andrew Jackson was president in the 1830s. One of my books is called Andrew the Great. And it focuses heavily on what was called the Bank War at the time. And he survived by miracle. He was shot at twice from close range, Jackson. They wanted to kill him because he killed the second central bank in the United States. So that's what Hitler did. He ended the Fed. So now correlate that to today, what's going on. And again, you begin to see, why the hatred against them. But this heated up the economy because now you've got an honest currency system. He cut taxes, he cut bureaucracy. So it was a strong government, and they were involved in many ways with public-private partnerships, but it was pro-business. But at the same time that it was the business class loved them because they were afraid of communism. But at the same time that he's pro-business, labor loved him. He got rid of all the communist-run labor unions, and they set up a national labor front. And this was the deal. Big business, make all the money you can. Go for it. You're going to treat your employees right, though. And the German factories that were built during those days, huge windows and light coming in. It was like you're working inside of a nice shopping mall or something. So everything was uplift the condition of the working man. And it was this ideal, the mentality. That's what they refer to as socialism. We're all in this together. Business class, working class. Catholic, Protestant. Rich, poor. We're Germans. We're brothers. Okay? And that was the ethic that just permeated throughout German society. Because they not only had to suppress the Marxists, they also wanted to undo that old mentality of thinking of the aristocratic type element being at the top of society. And he hated the whole idea of because it used to be, people would look down on you. But the Germans, based on what you did, right? But they would, under Hitler, they had these posters, propaganda posters. It would show a guy in a white lab coat, doctor or scientist, arm in arm with a guy who's got a monkey wrench and a hard hat on. Okay? White collar, blue collar, everybody together. We're Germans. We respect each other. We move forward. They had vacation programs for the workers. This is unbelievable. It's called Strength Through Joy program. So the employee puts aside a little money, the employer puts aside a little money, the state puts aside a little money. So now a hardworking person who's maybe a factory worker or laborer, okay, doesn't have a real high income, he could take his family on a nice cruise in the Baltic Sea. These were state-of-the-art cruise lines. And these people are like, oh my God, I was starving a few years ago. Here I am taking cruises with my family. So that's what happens when people work together and when you have an honest monetary system. You could have this kind of universal prosperity. And boy, oh boy, did the German people respond to this. Okay, look at these pictures. And there's a million of them. And they weren't set up or nothing. This is spontaneous. Okay, people from other countries visiting Germany, they saw this every day. Wherever he went, just throngs of people. He was a rock star. Okay, it was like being Frank Sinatra and Elvis times 1,000. Women just break out in tears. You see videos of them when they saw him. Now the detractors will say, "Oh, they were brainwashed, by Goebbels and stuff." Nah, you don't brainwash a whole country like that. That was gratitude. These people, what they went through, World War I, the hyperinflation, the Great Depression, 20 years of on and off suffering.
Well,
and now here they are, full employment, taking cruises. Of course they loved them.
Well, just
some of his strongest supporters, you know who they were? The ex-communist voters. Because he really, truly delivered on the bullshit promises that the communists put forward about workers' paradise. He really delivered. So then you got the business class, the ex-communist. It would be like a modern-day libtards in a couple years loving Trump, which might happen, by the way.
It might. And the funny part is the same people that would tell you right now, oh, they were brainwashed, are the same ones that are telling you, take this bioweapon in your arm, even though you've already experienced it. Hey, no, a man can have a baby. No, we don't know what a woman is. No. But these are the brainwashed people. It's like, come on.
That's known as projection, because somewhere deep down in their inner psychology, they know that they can't think for themselves. You understand? So it's almost like a subconscious defense mechanism they project it on you, right? So that's the way it was. Now, so he's a rock star, and there's a problem. And he even said this. Hitler said this, because later on, when they started building up for war, he says that leaders in these other countries, they're afraid sooner or later, their people who are hungry and out of work are going to start asking questions. What's going on in Germany? How come we're living like this? And look at Germany. And it's very important because the whole system was based on keeping people down. And here he is doing the opposite. Now, at this time, the drumbeat begins. Okay. It starts in 33 and then it intensifies. I want to show you a headline here. This is from the Daily Express, largest newspaper in Britain. Judea declares war on Germany. And it's just a story about all the Jews of the world are now at war with Germany. Okay. There were calls for boycott German industry. There's a picture there of Hitler supposedly beating up a little Jewish guy. Okay. So the propaganda became really intense. Hitler had to address it. And this is what he says in 1933. Lies and slander of positively hair-raising perversity are being launched about Germany. Horror stories of dismembered Jewish corpses, gouged out eyeballs, and hacked off hands are circulating for the purpose of defaming the German people in the world for the second time, just as they had succeeded in doing in 1914. So he called it out right away. This is all a lie. This is atrocity propaganda. And this is 1933. So I showed you that headline from the British paper. New York Daily News, same time frame, early 1933. This is Madison Square Garden. 40,000 roar protest here against Hitler. What are they protesting? He hasn't done anything. He's only been in office a month. But it's 40,000, mainly Jews and communists, already screaming, down with Hitler. Okay? So, unless he's somehow removed internally, there's got to be another war to take him out. But as the 30s unfold and the situation begins to change in Germany, now Germany becomes stable again. Okay, you don't have these competing factions anymore. By the way, when he is given those powers with the Enabling Act, he shut down the Communist Party. He said, no more seats. Don't you dare show up at Parliament. You're out. The brown shirts were outside. That was their muscle. So that's how you got to deal with these people. That's the only language they understand. So when they say, oh, he was anti-democratic, he kicked people out of Parliament. Well, damn straight. Those were Bolsheviks. Because if they ever took full power, they would do to Germany what their comrades did to the Soviet Union.
It's what needs to happen here.
Yeah. So now as we get to the late 1930s, and this whole time there's just constant propaganda, sort of like what we've seen against Putin for these last 10 years. Just the drip, 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 drip. Okay. 1938, Austria merges with Germany. And they try to spin that as Germany conquered Austria. No, they're Germans. They're brothers. And 99% of the people in Austria wanted this. So it was a voluntary merger. So now Austria becomes part of the German Reich. Who's in Austria at this time? Baron Louis Rothschild, who's the big banker of Austria.
That's a scary name right there, Rothschild.
Oh, yeah. So how did Hitler deal with him? Baron Rothschild held under arrest.
Oh,
the old headline.
Wait, so you're telling me that the demon Hitler arrested the Rothschild who we all want to see being arrested today? Man, this is getting interesting.
Isn't it? Getting interesting. And if you go to the Q alert board and you put the name in Rothschild, you see all the trash talk that Q has aimed at Rothschild. There's one directed right at Lady de Rothschild. We can hear you and your family breathing. There's no escape. So, same thing. Remember what I said? It's not history repeating. It's a continuation. So Hitler, he didn't play with these people. Put them in jail. Now the Windsors, that corrupt bunch who were been in bed with the Rothschild since the British royals went begging for money to defeat Napoleon, who was basically the Trump or the Hitler of his day. Another story there. I got a book on Napoleon too. Got to go to realnewsandhistory.com. History will just blow you away when it's presented properly. Now the Windsors go to Hitler. They're like, well, can you release Baron Louis? Okay, because they're hooked up with the Rothschilds of Britain, so they're begging Hitler to let him go. So here's another headline: Hitler snubs Windsor on Rothschild plea. It's like, no, we ain't letting him go, and they took his money.
Oh.
This was the equivalent of Executive Order 13818 of its day. They took Rothschild's bank and they took his money. They kept him in jail. Finally, as a favor to Prince Edward, who is going to be the future king, who liked Hitler, which is why they had to get rid of him. They got rid of the king. They say, oh, he married an American divorcee. That's inappropriate. That was bullshit. As a favor to him, they relented and they let him go and they kicked him out of the country, but they kept his money. So I think now we begin to get an idea what this war was about. Maybe really about. And and this is this was a major initiative of the German government, is educating the public. They actually set up a government department called the Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda. Now that term propaganda is not necessarily negative. It's actually a neutral term because you're propagating an idea. It's really another word for advertising. So,
I've shocked some people in my audience and in Twitter and these spaces when I've told them, you understand the White Hats are doing propaganda too, because it is
absolutely they're beating them at their own game.
100%. It is a very neutral term.
Yeah, it's a neutral term. It can be used just for the good as for the bad.
Mm-hmm.
So they had an actual ministry called Public Enlightenment and Propaganda. And what they were putting out truly was public enlightenment. Can you imagine an entire nation, 80 million people, every one of them schooled on the New World Order, on the cabal? Can you imagine if everyone in America was down with the Q? That's Germany.
You would have a hard time fooling. How many generations would you have to get past? Because parents are going to teach their kids.
Yeah. Right.
Man.
Yeah. That's the turnaround. That's the turnaround. And they did enormous effort to true public enlightenment. The Great Awakening. You see the parallels? And everybody knew. Everybody knew what the cabal was.
Let's
some of these posters, brilliant.
Let's do this, Mike. I think this is a perfect spot to marker this for part 2. And I want to take this time now because we've been covering the bad war. But for those that joined late, you have a lot of books on your website. So why don't you just take a few minutes to kind of tell us about all the kind of books that are on that website, so that my viewers immediately following this show can click on that link that's down there and go buy all the damn PDFs or hard copies to your book. So tell us about what's on this website.
Okay, realnewsandhistory.com. First of all, you could join a free mailing list. You'll see that right on the front page or any page. You submit your email, you get a free report. That gets you in the mailing list. You get a daily update, almost daily. I send out an update. So that's first thing. Join the mailing list, and then also check your spam. Make sure you get my emails each day. Most of my content is free, but I got to pay the bills too, especially after Amazon cut my balls off. Books and PDFs. Well, that was the flagship. This one we're talking about here, The Bad War. And you'll see that. Planet Rothschild, that's a 2-volume set. I cover 250 years of the globalist conspiracy. If you want to get up to speed, like really quick though, this is one you got to get. Crash Course NWO, 250 years of the globalist conspiracy in just 1 hour. This is on Amazon, by the way. Amazon is loosening up, by the way. Something's going on in this country. I'm telling you, things are starting to loosen up. I'm not going to put my World War II stuff on there, though, but I don't want to push it. But Crash Course NWO, you could read it in 1 hour because I believe, we have to use this stuff as weapons. And sometimes a 700, 800 page academic book isn't the ideal weapon. Okay. We want to do public enlightenment. So that's a good book to pick up. But you'll see in my books in section 30 different books: Napoleon, Andrew Jackson, Joe McCarthy. Here's another one with a bad rap. That's a hero. That's an American hero that they told us was a bad man, a monster. This is my more recent book, Crash Course 9/11 Inside Job. Again, you can get all of these at the site, book or PDF, but this one is also on Amazon. Crash Course 9/11 Inside Job. And then there's an article section, so many articles. I call it the candy store. You just lose yourself in there for hours. And all my stuff, it's the same template. I focus on keeping things clear and concise so people can get up the learning curve quickly and then share the stuff. I have a monthly donor option. You can get my $5 a month. You get my newsletter, the Anti-New York Times. I go through the Anti-New York Times each day or 5 days a week. I pull out one item and then I rebut it and I destroy it. So that's it. But yeah, bookmark the site, get on the free mailing list. Most of it is free, but you definitely want to get those PDFs. And if you can support me $5 a month, because I'm able to pull out this amazing stuff. Now, it doesn't come out of thin air. I got to roll up my sleeves and I go into the archives, the old New York Times. It's work. This is a full-time endeavor for me. This is my living. Okay. And it's been a challenge, especially ever since Amazon, what they did to me. But it's the readers who keep me in the game and keep me producing this stuff. And we're going to need this because once the storm hits, all these normies that laughed at all of us are going to have questions, right? And this is what we need to direct for them. And in closing, until we get to the next, because when we resume next time, the shooting starts. We're going to get to the good stuff, the war. But I wanted to make this one final point about propaganda and how effective and honest their propaganda was and how it relates to what we're seeing today. This is a German poster, propaganda poster. Tod der Lüge. It's German for death to the lie. And you see the so-called Nazi armband strangling a snake to death. Okay? Death to the lie. Well, what lie is that? Well, if you look at the snake on the top, it says Hoch Finanz, German for high finance. Rothschild, Soros, World Economic Forum, right? But on the underbelly of the snake, it says Marximus, Marxism. The lie is everybody thinks Marxism is against the evil capitalists. They're on our side. They're for the people. That's the lie. It's the same snake. This is the scam to consolidate and make big government, the Marxism. But the Marxists work for Hoch Finanz. Soros funds all these Marxist groups, and he's a super capitalist. So death to the lie, that snake. And that's what I mean about good propaganda. Because you look at something like that and you're like, yeah, that's exactly how it works. You go back to the Q posts. It attacks Rothschild. It attacks Soros. It attacks the central bank. And then it attacks the Marxists because it's the same snake. So
I'll tell you what, Mike, you always bring the fire, bro. I know I'm looking up to part 2. You guys, realnewsandhistory.com. Listen, I suggest you get the hard copies, 100%. But at a minimum, pay the $29 and get the 30 PDF versions of these books. Start reading, start studying. So many of you have started your own podcast. You're on these spaces. You're bringing the truth. Here's a whole library. You can have that fast, and at your disposal for information that you can start sharing with people, because that's what we are trying to do. We're trying to tackle the big lie. We're trying to uncover the true history that's been told from us. Why? A lot of people say, well, Alpha, I just care about what's going on today. You got to understand what they've twisted in the past to understand what's going on today. Because like I said earlier, they said I'm a terrorist. They say Trump's the devil. I mean, like Mike says, history doesn't repeat itself. It keeps on going. Mike, man, freaking awesome. I really do hope to see you doing a podcast, man. I really
Yeah,
hope
I've been thinking about getting around to that. 'Cause I've been doing a lot of like guests. I've been on a lot lately, so that's on the back. That's on the back burner.
well,
This stuff
you're
keeps me busy, writing each day. But
I'm telling you, man,
yeah,
even if it was just once a week, man, I think it's something that would pick up speed
Yeah.
really, really fast. Really fast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we ran all the way up to here commercial free. So do me a solid, support the people that support this show. Stick around, leave a comment, hit the thumb. It's free. So freaking subscribe. I'll catch you guys all tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. God bless and Semper Fi, everybody.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
Are you worried about the effects that higher inflation rates will have on your investments? Are you trying to secure your retirement savings against losses, but you notice that inflation is a hot topic these days? But how dangerous are low inflation rates on your retirement savings? An inflation rate of 2% may not seem like much, but it means that prices will just about quintuple over the lifetime of the average American. And 4% average inflation rate means that something that costs $1 when they're born will cost $23 when they die. That demonstrates the danger of even low inflation rates. So when it comes to gold and inflation rates, many investors want to know whether inflation rates have an effect on gold prices. What history indicates is that over the long term, increased inflation should lead to correspondingly higher gold prices. From September 1971 to August 2020, gold grew 7.5 times as much as inflation. Not only can an investment in physical gold help protect your assets against the damage done by inflation, it can also help grow the value of your retirement portfolio over the long term. If you're looking to protect your retirement assets, why wait until stock markets crash and gold begins to rise in price?
Have you ever wondered what it's like to be a January 6th political prisoner rotting away in horrible conditions? January 6th patriots are subject to cruel and unusual punishment every day and kept imprisoned for nearly 3 years without trial. These American heroes have to survive inhumane conditions where they lack basic food nutrients, clothing, and hygiene. Joe Biden's corrupt Department of Justice and FBI Gestapo has been making sure the families of these brave patriots are suffering as well. The breadwinner has been ripped out of the home, and these young families are being extorted thousands of dollars a year to keep up with commissary costs for their J6 prisoner. Many families have been completely devastated, missed mortgage payments and kicked out of their homes, and even the family car repossessed. The ongoing battle these families face to stay afloat and support their loved ones in prison is in desperate need of our help. You can now sponsor a January 6th family to help support them in their greatest time of need. SponsorJ6.com is a new organization started by January 6th political prisoner for 965 days, Jake Lang, ensuring 100% of funds made go to Patriots commissary accounts. By becoming a sponsor of a J6 family, you can ensure one of the nearly 200 currently incarcerated J6 prisoners is properly clothed and fed. Sign up today to give the vital help these families need and make a real impact in the lives of our POWs. Head to SponsorJ6.com and support our Patriots.